All right, well that's all about the Rock of Love. So now we've kind of touched base. So it was about 2 years before Daisy started filming Daisy of Love. And so how long was it, sorry, again, before they had made that offer after you finished the reunion? About a year, you said?
Yeah, it was about a year, pretty much. I mean, I had gotten an offer almost immediately to be on charm school.
Okay.
And so that was what I had thought that was what was going to happen next. I had already been told I was going to be on charm school and, sign the contracts and all these things, that you have to do, in order to, move forward. And, that was sort of what I was doing. And then, after I moved to LA and everything, and they knew, like what was going on with me and what was happening. And so, yeah, so that was pretty much the deal there.
So we're going to film Daisy of Love, right? You get the green light, right? Casting's done. Did you get to see all of the guys prior? Like, did they run it past you? Or was it really just 20 random guys?
I'm pretty sure I did not. I maybe, but I don't. I think they started actually. The producers themselves, they had built up content somewhere and like released it, like, oh, these are the guys or something. But I'm not really sure. I don't really remember. There might have been like a release of who they were going to be, but yeah, it was just. I think that was like that was a definite surprise.
So, how much did you know about what was going to happen going in? Like, obviously, Rock of Love, you had no idea because you were just a contestant, but this one's all about you. So, how much did you know? How much creative control did you have? Like, did you know kind of what the day by day was going to be?
Yeah, for the most part, I did. I had a schedule. This is what we're going to do today. This is what we're going to do tomorrow. This is what's going to what we want to happen. And a little bit of heads up because I yeah, it was a whole different ball game. It was and much more uh open and sort of they were Team Daisy all the way. So it was just like whatever Daisy wants, like whatever like. And so that was fun and that was really sweet and such a magical like beautiful experience.
Cinderella moment, really.
Yeah, like way Cinderella. Like it was just so I was just like and complete like my dreams are just have manifested. So it was really great.
So you walk in and you see these 20 guys and you see this beautiful mansion and you're like, oh shit, this is actually happening right now.
Yeah, right.
Were you genuinely going there to look for love? Like, did you want to genuinely find somebody there? Or were you kind of doing it hoping you would get a season two and a season three? And kind of like, where were you at? Like, where was your headspace at when you walked into it?
I think it was a little of all those things. I didn't I was like, oh yeah, right, I'm not gonna find Bob. Like there's no way, I'm pretty picky. There's no way they're gonna find a like like but we'll humor them and we'll see. And I think honestly that's how love really actually should be and how real love really is. It's a lot of times you're not like out there really looking for it. It just sort of boom hits you in the face, and you're like, whoa, like what in the hell? And I think that's the magical thing about falling in love and being in love and really sort of finding someone is that you really weren't. You're not expecting that. You're just out living your life, and then suddenly out of nowhere, somebody really comes and you fall for them, or whatever. And I think though as keeping things like as a professional, it's not something that's like, and it's not something I would recommend. But
So you pretty much just went in open to whatever the possibilities were going to come out of it then.
yeah, I was definitely open for sure. I had zero um sort of
Expectations.
expectations that they would have like yeah right like I'm like wait we'll see whatever like literally but then that wasn't necessarily because I was like oh I want a second season. It was literally because I was like I'm so picky there's no way in hell. Like,
So, okay, so you walk in and you see these, and guys, when I say this, I'm not being shady, but when you walk in, you see all these guys, and then it comes time you have to walk around, and you have to decide who do you want to start getting rid of. And there's three Swedish triplets who I personally am pretty sure I've kept up with them. I'm pretty sure they were all gay and only there for fame. No shame, I'm gay, so it's good. But what were your thoughts when you're like, why are there three triplets here that I don't know. Like, what were your thoughts on them? Were you like kind of weirded out? Like,
They like I really didn't. I was, pleasantly surprised, but the producers definitely told me like right off the bat. They're like, listen, like you're gonna the three Swedish guys are they're basically a joke, like, and that like just have fun with them. We think it's funny, and they're really like they're it's just hilarious to us, and so just we're gonna eliminate them. We already know we're gonna eliminate them, but just just go with it. And so I was like, okay, like, but I was definitely yeah, that was like a little prank. The producers wanted to like go with. They thought it was like so funny, and they thought they were funny, and they were like, "This is gonna be hilarious," because it was such a shock. There was like these three like Swedish, little Swedish
like,
mafia
did they
going on.
want them to be like when it came to elimination? Was it like they had to be voted in as one, or would it like did
I
they
don't
even say
know. That's
that?
actually like we never got that far. So
Yeah.
the producers already knew like right off the bat. They were like, we don't want to keep them actually for whatever reason. And there was no like, oh, like, oh, I would assume that like maybe they're gonna be I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, because it could go either way. You know,
Fun fact for
they could be
everybody
at
too.
first like come as a
Fun fact is that they were actually featured in Lady Gaga's Paparazzi music video.
yeah.
I'm not sure if you guys knew that, but yeah, they were in her Paparazzi music video. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next guy that you kicked out was Dropout. I assume you might remember a little more about the guys because it happened closer and it was probably a little bit more, like, obviously it was more for you. So if you have anything you want to share, you can, or you can always just say skip and we'll just move past. But do you have any stories or favorite memories with Dropout?
I really don't like on the show. It was more. I know that that Tristan, I think was his real name. He was a really nice guy. Like afterwards, he was very nice to me. And so I didn't really there was this. I thought he was a cute guy, but and so we tried to be friends. I think after that and whatnot, but again, it's people. You get close with people as peers, and then you sort of move on.
Okay, and what about Torch? So just so you guys remember, Torch is the guy that looked like his hair was like on fire. It was all orange and looked like a flame. Anything to say on him?
No, I think these were all really nice people, and I really appreciate them going through all that they had to go through just to get to where they needed to do for the show, to make the show. And so I'm very grateful and thankful for that. And I know it's not an easy process, and so I hope that they're doing well. And but there's not really, I think that those people who sort of went at the time that they went was appropriate. They just weren't there. It was just meant to be like that. Like they were literally like, you know,
Yeah.
interesting people, and like, but I don't know. I mean,
So Flipper's the next guy that goes home, but tell me about that scene in the show when you guys are all sitting by the pool and you're all having drinks, kikiing, having fun, and he climbs the production thing. You remember that? And he like
yeah,
backflips into the pool. And watching it as a viewer, you can clearly tell the pool was not very deep where he was doing it.
yeah.
Was that like what happened in that scene? Were you all freaking out? Was production like, get down?
Yeah, I don't really know. Yeah, it was a definite like, what are you doing? Like, and yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that was definitely like a complete hugely improv, moment where she just decided I don't know, maybe somebody, I highly doubt the producer was like, hey, do you think you could like climb up that thing and like jump off and do a backflip into like that was sort of like what he did anyways, I guess. I think he was kind of like a jackass kind of person. So that was sort of like his thing in life or his style or whatever. So it was sort of just made sense, but it was very definitely very random and shocking. But hey, I'm glad that he didn't get hurt. That's all I gotta say. And I guess it makes for interesting TV, I suppose. I don't know.
It must have been fun. Like, I mean, it's been a long time, but I mean, at the time, you were probably what, like 27 when you filmed Daisy of Love, right? Because you were 25 when you
Yes,
filmed Rock of Love.
yes,
So about
yes,
27, 28. So you're still kind of in that party age. You're like, you know what? Fuck it.
yes,
Let's just go with it. See what
yes,
happens. It's a big
yes.
party. So
Right.
next, I believe he left on his own, and then obviously comes back as the winner. But London left. I watched a lot of these shows in the past like 48 hours, so I kind of forget. But why did he leave in the first place?
Um, and I think, I can't really speak for him,
Was he the
because
one that
I'm
left
not.
because he had a girlfriend?
I think like deep, inside in somewhere in his, in his psyche, he was feeling like most people felt like how I was feeling on Rock of Love myself. I had the same kind of experience where I was just like, what the fuck is going on? It was a very psychological thing, thinking like, oh, this is just a job. But then it's so, they make such adamant, like every day, Brett Michaels, like, if anybody's faking this, I swear, America's gonna hate you. So I'm like, I'm not faking this, I love you. Like, and, so it was kind of like one of those things. And for specific reasons, but I think maybe I can't really speak for him, but I feel like he might have had one of those moments where he was like, "Oh shit," is this is a little too real for him, and that's when he, was like, "I'm out of here." He probably didn't really want to be there in the first place, but I think it was, to him, it was a joke as well. So it was just sort of, all right, I've made my little appearance. I'm gonna bail out now.
Well, I think too, what a lot of people don't understand is nowadays reality shows like, on Zeus Network and all these, you can smoke weed. Okay. Back then, a lot of these
Oh.
people did smoke weed, and then they were pretty much like, you can't smoke weed, nothing
Mhm.
like that on camera. So not only are these people taken out of their norm, like a lot of them are like more chilled out, relaxing pot smokers. Like I did my research, and I know that Brett like smoked weed with a lot of the girls off camera because he loves his cannabis. God bless. But yeah, so it's a hard situation. You're taking somebody away from everything that they know on a daily,
Mhm.
everyday basis. So, like for example, if you can't smoke weed, you're kind of on the edge a little bit, right? So some people have dipped out, like through different other reality shows, due to similar reasons, and they come back as well. So we'll talk about him winning in a little bit, and I'm going to skip a lot of these guys because it is what it is. So one guy a lot of us want to know about is Fox. How much do you think he was really there for you, or how much do you think he was just there for an opportunity, as well as do you have anything else to add on to anything about him?
I don't really want to. I can't really say that like anybody was really there specifically for me, and I don't fault them for it. I understand exactly what the goal is. The goal was, and so there was never any moment of like, oh, he's not here for me. But of course, as the producers know more than anyone. They know exactly who's really there for you know for fame, who's there because they have a genuine interest possibly. Because I can't say like every girl on like Rock of Love or whatever had the same motives or same kind of mindset or same purpose as I did.
Yeah,
We all have different. I wouldn't say like agendas, because I'm not trying to say, oh, I had an agenda, but like sort of just things in life, and that made us different, obviously, and specifically, and whatever. And so I would imagine there's that kind of same thing going on with the guys. So it wasn't really, there was, and the producers know that well off the bat. They just like automatically know, and so they already sort of like planned it out. Who they know that they're gonna just say, you know what, let's get rid of that guy now. He's served his purpose. And we're gonna cut him loose because we already know like what he's here for, what he's about, and whatever it was that they wanted to get from the situation. And I don't fault anyone for that. And thank you for participating and really making and being there and showing up because it's not an easy thing. It's not. It looks like it might be but when you're really living it, then it's a totally different kind of animal. You're sort of in this whole different surreal, weird vibe. So I know how nerve wracking it could be, and maybe, and also some people could very well have gotten cold feet. you know, when you're faced with all that kind of you know, lights and cameras and literally in your face, like there's no moment unless you're pooping or like, you know, sleeping, there's no moment where the camera was, and I think that was also another thing like Josh didn't like. He really, you know, and that could be really uncomfortable for some people. And for, you know, for someone like me, I'm just like, you know, hey, can you put like the camera back on me? You know, like look at me. But not, you know, not everybody's like that, and so that can definitely be a little bit triggering for some people to be like, you know, I'm freaked out, having anxiety. I got to get out of here. This is too much for me to handle. It's sort of like it's sort of like a reality check. You know, you're just like, whoa, like wait a minute, this is pretty, you know, intense. It's an intense process.
Well, because that was also a side note question. So for the guys, it was filmed like it would have been filmed for you on Rock of Love. So they had the cameras in their face 24/7. So it's a double question. One, did you actually stay in the house the whole time? And B, were you filmed as often as the guys were?
So I did stay in the house because that made the best sense, obviously.
Okay.
And I know I would have not preferred it any other way because it really kept me in the focus of it and
Yeah.
in the mindset. You know, I like my life. You know, as maybe some people might know, is like, you know, off a camera is also, it's still pretty dramatic, you know. So it's like I'm like filled with like other side dramaticness, and they're like, you know, Daisy, you got to focus on like the drama here. So I'm like, so you know, that was a good thing, that a positive that I definitely would have not have had it any other way. But yeah, the guys were really the focal point of my own show. It wasn't really necessarily me. I was just like the, you know, the sort of
The
like
face.
yeah, or whatever, you know, but it was really about them. And so it was, of course, you know, they deserved and should have gotten and would have gotten more time, you know, because it's really, they're the ones making the story.
Yeah. So you had a lot of downtime where you weren't being filmed, so you could kind of relax a little bit?
Yeah,
Like
but
to
I
an
was always like
extent?
I was like up in a little dungeon, basically, like this little castle dungeon, and I was, you know, sipping my drink and all drunk, you know, get my makeup all done, you know. I had this huge wardrobe, you know, closet I would just lay in and like put my clothes, you know, like just doing like princess shit, you know. And then they would be like, "All right, Daisy, we're ready for you." And I'm like, okay, you know. But I was the day was always filled for me to do for like something. It was like, you know, you're gonna be, and then in the meantime, you know, like whatever I was doing, they were prepping me for something. But in the meantime, they're not prepping the dudes for anything. They're just like, oh, you guys are awake, let's film you. You know, we don't care if you look like crap. You gotta brush your teeth, like whatever. But for me, they're like, Daisy, it's time to wake up. Oh my God, you're gonna go get her, Mary Karen, Patty Karen, get her hair. I'm like, okay, and then we're gonna film you at 4 o'clock. And I'm like, all right, cool. You know, so in the meantime, you know, the dudes are, you know, definitely, there's no, you know, there's, while I'm doing that, while I'm prepping myself, you know, getting myself ready for whatever, they're off, you know, just filming them in their face, like, hey.
Go ahead. You had a question?
Now, you don't have to answer this if you want to, but I was wondering, did the producers have any say of elimination, like part say?
Yeah. So again, mostly they already had figured out all the guys pretty much. They knew who was kind of like a dud and who was this or that. So they, in the very beginning, it was definitely like we're eliminating this guy today, and it was like an obvious like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, that's an obvious that we're gonna, that person is you know, they're just not. You know, they're not nothing. They're not very, they're just not very whatever, you know. And so, you know, there was no real battle or, you know, disagreements or anything. It was just like, that makes sense.
So you didn't generally when you went into elimination, I guess the question was it already chosen by production who went home?
Yeah, it was a discuss. I mean, I don't want to give the secrets away. It's like,
Well,
I feel like
your NDA is
like
great
if I know
as
anyone else is watching it, they're gonna be like so sad. Like I don't want to like let them like let it like, you know. It was you know, it was I mean, but it just made sense. Like even if you watch it, it just makes sense. Like you can just tell, like, you know, this person is just, you know, they're not. They're falling out. You know, they're tuning out. They're sort of just, you know, they're not into it. They're not into it as you know, the others, and it just really all is, you know, very very fate and very just the way that it was supposed to be. I mean, there's, you know,
reality
that's
TV. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. I mean, it went the way that it was supposed to, no matter what, no matter if it was to be, you know, chosen by me or the producers. It just made all make sense, you know. So it's something that you can just, just as a person, you can just see like that person's definitely gonna go because they're not very, they're not giving us anything. They're just.
So the next one that I did want to touch base on, there's only a couple more guys, and then we'll wrap up, do some fan questions and blah blah blah. But Big Rig, who actually did quite a bit after he was on, I think he was on I Love Money, or The Real Love of Money or something. Or he was on a couple different of the reality shows. He dated the Rock of Love from season 3, Marsha. And then he was also on a TV series called WWE Reality Smackdown or something, where he came in third. Any memories about him? And did you watch any of the shows he was on after?
I didn't, and I just congratulations to him. That's great. And I hope that anyone, just as much as I did, whatever it was they're trying to get out of the situation, like I hope that they accomplish that. I really do, because I think this is. It is an entertainment, and we all have our, our desires and things that we love and want in life, and that makes me happy to hear. And I think he was a really genuine person, and he deserves all that he's got. And I don't actually watch TV at all, so I haven't watched TV in over, maybe almost like 20 years. Like I'm not a TV watching kind of person, so I really don't know what's happening. Like. In that sense, like I'm like I don't know, but that's great to hear. And I'm very happy for him and proud of him for being able to do that. And there's something great about him and his character that really deserved that. So that's wonderful.
A lot of your cast actually was a lot of people on your show were cast on quite a few of the other spin-offs, like Sinister, 12 Pack, like a lot of them. I'm not gonna list them all because who cares, but. So Chi-Chi and Sinister were the roommates, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anything you wanted to touch base on them before we do the final 3?
I think that I think I bonded with Sinister probably like maybe Sinister and Dave the most, because we just sort of like Sinister, we do music and stuff, and he's just sort of like little like me.
And Sinister was the,
like as people,
the long-haired the long black.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, Trip is and he's a really cool person. He's really cool, well-rounded, smart, kind, articulate, person who just knows what he's doing, and like he's competent. He's a competent person, and he just happens to be that his friend Brandon, they were roommates, and so that always makes for something fun.
That would have been awkward if you did pick one of them and then they still live together and you're like, oh, hi. What's up? How's it going?
I mean, okay. I think it happens all the time, like in real life, right?
I don't know. I guess, like, for me, I'm still best friends with my ex-boyfriend, and he still comes over and hangs out with me and my current boyfriend all the time, so. Yeah,
and that was kind of the same thing with, like, Charles, Edward.
Yeah.
We were, for a long, we're not close anymore. We had, we've since our friendship and everything has run its course, but there's still, we were very, very, we were, I was, calling him about, complaining about this guy or that guy. And I think after a while I got tired of that. And it was like, all right, like, I'm done with you. Like,
I know, right?
How many times do I have to tell you? Why do you, I'm like, sorry.
Okay, so we have a couple, just the last 3, and then we can do fan questions and stuff like that. So everybody wants to know, like, literally looking through the comments, this is the person people want to know most about is 12 Pack, aka Dave. Do you have any memories, stories about him? Also, there was rumors saying that that's the reason Heather fought you at the reunion, was something about when you filmed something for I Love Money when they had hooked up and you knew that and she had apologized to you.
I don't think that I don't think I filmed the I Love Money thing until after the reunion show.
Okay.
So I don't believe that's correct. And honestly, I have no idea. That's in her own head that she created. I had no anything. Like, I was just like, I'm just being Daisy, doing shows and interviewing, doing what they wanted me to do and going wherever they want me to go. But I think that was after I'm pretty sure that was after
I would think so because she apologized.
reunion, because I already, they were, and yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like just right after, but I'm not, so I don't know. And, that's unfortunate. I have no idea. I have no idea. I had no idea about Dave, and I really wasn't paying too much attention to him when I interviewed him. It was just, he's a good looking guy, but I wasn't really, I wasn't, there was not really anything going on, on my end, I was just sort of like there doing my job. And then, when he came on, yeah, that was something that was definitely a surprise. I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was interesting. And so, yeah, and I had zero clue that they had any involvement because I didn't watch the show. So, I'm not sure how much that is true because, we'd have to get like all of us like in a room together and like really have like a discussion about it. But,
I think they were looking for a spin-off is what I think they were looking for, because I also read that he was offered his own show after Daisy of Love, but because of what happened, also guys, we're not going to talk about it. If you want to know what happened with Megan Wants a Millionaire, you guys can Google that. We're not going to get into details about that. But after what happened, I think it was 51, it was 51 something media,
51
and VH1.
Minds.
Yeah, they split ways. Shit, I totally lost my track of mind where I was going with that one. Yeah, so what I was saying is he was supposed to get his own show, but it was canceled because of what happened. Do you think that he was only there knowing he was going to get a spinoff? Like, did production tell you not to pick him, or were you really not interested in him?
No, the production never told me to pick, not to pick anyone, except they actually did sort of say like, don't pick Josh. They really were like sort of like, Daisy, like, that guy doesn't want to be here. They were always like kind of like from the get-go like gung-ho about me not going with Josh. Like they definitely
Fox,
were.
Right?
No, Josh. So Fox is Daniel, London is Josh.
He was Josh. Okay.
And so as far like going with London, they were pretty much like, I'm sure I feel like they were hopeful for that, but once they realized, like, they saw, that he didn't want to be there, and they sort of, gotten in like kind of like a moment where he was, demanding to leave or whatever, they were like, Daisy, like, that guy wants to leave, just let him leave and focus on these other guys. And then when I wanted to bring him back, they were like, no, we're not bringing him back because like he doesn't want to be here. And insider thing, and I was like, well, yeah, I think he does, because we had some brief conversations or whatever, and he claimed that he wanted to come back and whatnot, and but they always like really didn't want me to be with Josh. Like they were like, don't be with Josh or London. They were kind of like, no. As far as Dave goes, I'm not really sure. And maybe if he was there like for me, or if he really was interested, I just wasn't actually like necessarily in the right kind of frame of mind for him. I don't know. It's just weird. Like I think he was just he was more intimidating for me, or he was definitely like not really my style kind of guy. So I might have felt like a little.
Is there any truth? Because I think he did an interview and he said that you guys briefly dated after the show.
No, I didn't date him as far as I can remember. So
I think he said
there's a lot of people that are saying they dated me after, like, that I'm like, I didn't date that person. Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm like, just because I hung out with you one time, no. That's not what I consider a date. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong with dates, but
yeah, he did an interview.
I did do some appearances with he's very active. He's very pro for his own career and his own life and his own thing, and that's great. And again, I don't fault anybody for that, because that's really the nature of the game and just how it is. So, and I'm I would never be like, oh, you're just in this for fame, like hello. But as long as they're respectful, and they're not like, oh, screw that bitch or whatever, because that's kind of messed up. But I consider these people my peers in a sense. And he did actively work to give me some work and like little things, and want to work with me and be a part of like some little things that he was doing, and I think that's really nice, and I really appreciate that. And he was very kind to me, and but I was very, very busy for very many years, so I didn't have time to really connect with anybody any more than just a brief, like, hey, I'm in your city, and then I'm out. Like, and that's it. And I really wasn't in a head frame, to be, I was,
You had everything going on at that time.
yeah, I was really just, and also I was, and some of those times, some of those moments, and some of those parts of my life, I was very detached. Anyways, I was very sort of not just I was just emotionally detached in some ways.
Yeah. So okay, we'll get into these last two really quick here. So Flex, who I personally thought out of the two should have won. Any like stories, memories you want to share about him? Is there a reason you chose London over him as well?
There, I mean, I did have an attraction and sort of my own vision when I had decided, London, I really liked London. I really wanted London to be the person or whatever. And that was my mistake in some ways, because it was just, I got carried away in sort of like a false reality in a sense, which is kind of, it's kind of funny. And then Flex, he's a really good, nice guy. And again, at that time period, I wasn't like necessarily like 100% looking for somebody 100%, but I also wasn't opposed to it, and I was also surprised by it, but I also was very like, this is the kind of guy I like. This is, if you don't have this or this, or if you're not like this or this, I can't even be open to at all. And so that kind of maybe made things a little bit difficult in some way, because, it leaves a very narrow sort of, frame of mind. Like I was open, but I wasn't as open as like I might be now. Like now I definitely have a way broader and way more sort of, present sort of feeling about myself and the way I want to connect with people and men. I'm not very I'm not the best with men, to be honest with you anyways, though. And so, and my taste and my things have changed, but he just wasn't my type in a way. And so that was unfortunate, because I wasn't really letting myself really be there for him. It was more like he was there for me, but I wasn't really showing up for that and something. And I feel kind of like, the way that went is sort of, I don't know, but I think it's just a process of being a human being too, and sort of growing as a person, and having different experiences, and then knowing how to better connect and really, connect with people and really notice them, and not just, and so that sense, it was just more like, oh, yay, like I'm a star, and like, who cares, and blah, 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 but it wasn't, and so that's, and so I don't think it was made for a very fair, a really just deep, like, wow, like, she's really falling in love with, because I wasn't able to really, my emotional maturity just wasn't.
Well, your emotional wall was up.
Yeah, I really did, except that there was just this one, like, random chance that but it was all a physicality thing, it was a physicality thing, and it wasn't something that was like, oh, this person is such a fabulous person, and they're kind, and and so it was like, oh, that guy's really fucking good looking, and I'm super attracted to him, and that's all that matters. Like, who cares about anything? Who cares about all those red flags?
Yeah.
Like, who cares that he just told you? Who cares that his girlfriend just called you and was like, no, that doesn't matter. Like, he's really good looking though.
I remember that she called the house and talked to you. Bitch had
that was
nerve.
Fox's girlfriend, I guess, apparently. Yeah, and so and it's none of that was shocking. I mean, it wasn't just like, oh, how dare you? It was like, well, I'm like, I mean, when you look at Fox, you look at me, he doesn't look like a man who's going to be single. No. I mean, he's a good-looking guy. He's a totally, he's charming. Like, he's not going to be single. Like, and if he is single, he definitely has he has a woman somewhere, hiding in his pocket.
There's numbers in his phone. We'll put
yeah, and actually, that's the funny thing. Like, as a kind of an inexperienced person with relationships and men in some way, I only just really started realizing that in my life, that like men they always have someone somewhere, like hiding in the background.
Really, I find women do more than men.
I don't know. For me, I mean, I don't have experience with women, so I can't say like I agree with that. I don't know, but I definitely know, like I've learned now when I'm thinking like, oh, this guy is so nice and he's never getting laid, poor guy. And then all of a sudden I'm like, what? That guy has like 20 girlfriends. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, where did you even get those girlfriends? And then my whole perspective
Where'd you
changes
find the
of them.
fucking time? Like, where'd you
Mhm.
Yeah,
find the
like
time?
like some of my the guys that I had, sort of been, dating ish or whatever. At first, I was really shocked. Because I was like, they never get laid, poor guy. Like, and then it just like their whole entire like manhood starts unraveling in my and right before me. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're like the biggest player I've ever met in my life. Like, holy shit. So
All
I've
right,
learned a little bit now. It's like,
so let's dive into our last guy here, London. So we talked about him briefly earlier. He did leave episode 4, and then Daisy, you and him, and production, whatever, whoever decided to bring him back, he comes back, and you end up picking him. So a lot of the fans want to know, because I guess you made a MySpace post about him. I know it's still up there somewhere. I didn't read it. I didn't have the time today, but how did that go? Did you guys date after? What was your experience? The fans kind of want to know how that went and what you want to talk about. You don't have to talk about anything you don't want to, so just whatever you're comfortable with.
I say like I really don't want to ruin it for anyone else who might be discovering the show. Um, but I definitely there's a lot more deeper things definitely that were very deep and very personal that occurred that really changed me as a person and was were valuable things and lessons and I think if I ever write a book, then that's probably where that information will be revealed because I don't want to just put it out there and then somebody comes across it and then sort of like they're just like there's no reason to really discover like this piece of art that's been created in this
Mhm.
thing and I don't want to ruin that for them in a sense and I know it might sound weird but and if if there ever was a time to reveal it like in like a book then they can choose to just pick up the book and read it rather than just being exposed to it all on the internet and everything like that and because it is a story and it is it's a real story in a sense but it's also it is a story that I don't want to like spoil it for anybody else because there are a lot of people that are like oh like and it was like that and it is like that but then there's like a
So you
darker
did date.
there's a darker moment that I don't want to like get into some darker moments that were like
Okay.
pretty
Well,
tragic
we
like
don't have to get into detail, but just for
yeah
like the fans people, you did date in real life after the show.
I, I wouldn't. I guess I would say that I was very very like um grossly like overstepping like blurring the lines of real life and reality. And so I was lost in my own like vision of like for my own life and for future works and like a sort of a bigger like picture that I was really romanticized and that was just not realistic at that time. It just wasn't going to be and that was my own fault and maybe a lot of what had happened or has happened or did happen was my fault maybe because I you know like he's probably like I thought this was a fucking TV show. Why is she being so psychotic? Like get her away from me. And so that's a valuable lesson to to learn and to know about myself and my emotions and for and it is what it is. But it definitely was something that I was something in my life that I continuously had. Hopefully not anymore. I hope, but I can't say. Pursuing things or people that just don't have any don't have any fucking interest in me, and so that's something that I've been really bad at, and it's caused a lot of like dramatic, maybe unnecessary, you know, self-inflicted pain that just wasn't if I had grown up in a life or in a situation where I had been shown how love works and what love is and the way and things that are healthy for you, I might not have been like that and so determined in some ways. And so now I've sort of I'm sort of more open to that about myself, and I realized that a little bit more, and that's sort of been helpful. And so, yeah, it's just not, and then now, anything, now it's just, it's a moment in time, and that's what it is now.
Well, let's just say thank you to the cast. I mean, we hope all of the guys are doing well. And guys, what we do here once again
Yes.
is, we don't have any hate in our hearts. Like, I've seen a couple comments saying we don't like Heather, we don't like. That's not what these interviews are about. It's been
Positivity.
fucking years upon years since they've done these shows.
Yeah, I have like zero anything towards that. Like, not at all. Like, I have zero feeling for her
None
at
of these
all.
people.
I have a feeling for her because we shared a very important aspect of our life together that was very, at least for me, it was very, very prominent, very prevalent, and it.
Public.
And so, in that way, I have a soft spot for her. But I actually never really hold grudges against any. You can like blow up my car, and I'll still like be your friend later on. But I just not that person that I just so yeah.
We forgot one last person, the host,
Oh.
Ricky. Apparently, like as you said, he always kind of had a soft spot for you. I found on Rocket Love, and then he kind of he saved you from falling off the stage.
Yeah.
You switched stilettos, and then he really genuinely. I felt watching the show like you guys were friends, and he had your best interest. Do you have anything you want to share about him?
I can definitely say Ricky was I had the hugest crush on Ricky. That's all. I was like, can I just date Ricky? I was like, you know what? Done show. I want to date Ricky. Done. But I knew that wasn't gonna be so. He was it was so exciting to see him. Every moment that he was called to be on the set, and I was just so excited. Ricky's here, yay! And so I hope that that's true because I didn't know he had any type of thing for me until people, oh yeah, he's really liked you and wanted to support you on the show and stuff, and I thought that was really sweet. And again, I was just in a place where I'm not really good at making connections with people at that time, but he was married and since then had a divorce, but he got married again, obviously. But I really enjoyed Ricky. I thought he was sweet. Really just I was like, why can't I just be with Ricky? But that obviously wasn't gonna be that was all. That was another Daisy. No, you're not doing. You're doing those things again.
He
and
is
so
really hot.
yeah, but he's also really cool and really neat and just really just he's great. He's a great guy, and so I wish him the best too. And we did some things afterwards, and he was really kind to me and really supportive and throughout that. But again, it's a journey that happens, and for people who in the entertainment industry, unfortunately, it's just sort of the way it is. And I think it's people, you're built for that kind of thing, or you're not. You get really close to people and you allow them into your life, and you connect with them in order to create something that's meaningful and powerful, and then you sort of just disconnect from them and you go on about your life, and you sort of you think about people who've made movies and all the movies they've made and how that time they had to spend with people and got so close, and you see them and they're oh, they were so in love with your character, and do you ever speak to that person? And they're it's most likely no, because now I've moved on as a person, and as an actor, and sort of on to the next sort of fantasy or whatever, and that can be a hard thing to be lost in. But and so I'm just really grateful Ricky wanted to do the show, because I think he was also a really exciting part of the show. Where I don't know about anybody else, but if I was watching it, I would be oh, I just want to see Ricky. When's Ricky gonna come on?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give a little
question,
round of applause to all of those
Oh.
boys in the cast.
Yay.
So now we'll get into just some rapid questions, fan questions.
Yeah.
Kay, do you have any questions? Because I want to make
Yes.
sure that you can dive on into.
Yes. Okay. So if you had a creative chance to basically pick who you can decide to have their own spinoff, who would it be from those seasons you were on?
12 back. Come on.
I would say Sinister. I would say Sinister. I don't know. They're all really sweet. Sinister and Chi-Chi. I think a tag team, how it was
duo
Real
thing.
Chance or whatever.
Yeah. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, I think they're a cute little team, and I think Sinister has a genuine enthusiasm about him. He's generally just excited and a positive guy, and and he's a sensitive, sweet kind of person. And I would really hope for him to have his find his his Daisy of Love or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
A question.
go
I
ahead.
have-
Sorry.
A question I have is, have you ever watched the TV show Bad Girls Club before? Because like as you know, like our page revolves around Tivity, and we do interviews with the Bad Girls, but of course, open to like interview more reality stars. So yeah, have you ever watched the show before?
I think at one point I was gonna be on the a Bad Girls Club once a long time ago. I have not watched the show, but I obviously I'm very I'm familiar with the Bad Girls Club. So, um,
I can't imagine you being on that show.
why?
You're just so tiny and polite. And
I'm
all
like
they
so
do is
I'm
fight each
like even
other.
people that I'm like they're so tiny, and then I get next to them, I'm like what? I'm like why am I like literally like like an elf next to everybody? Like
Well, also, just so you guys remember, her uncle, I believe, right, is Oscar De La Hoya.
yeah.
So I'm sure that she can throw some moves. I forgot to mention earlier. I like I said, I just rewatched all of it. You fucking kicked ass in that football challenge.
Yeah, that was like something I was actually surprised by myself, but I just that really was because I hate sports, to be honest. I hate sports. I'm not a sports person at all, but I do like to play them. I grew up like a very tomboyish kind. I didn't want to be a boy or anything, but I just got along better with boys, and I just had that like vibe, I like to skateboard and like ride my bike and and like Barbies. I fucking hate Barbies. They're so stupid. I want to do things that are like cool and stuff. And it wasn't necessarily like trying to be a boy or whatever. It just was the way. I think it was just
Tomboy.
my
Yeah.
yeah. It was a tomboy, but not like on. It was just the way that I just was. Like it wasn't. I just enjoyed. I just enjoyed the opposite sex. To be honest, I liked being with the opposite sex. And so, and it wasn't like, I wasn't like playing like G.I. Joes with them or anything. It was more like, we're going to do evolved shit, we're going to play like, we're going to do like karate or some shit, or we're going to, just do like cool shit that's, that, wasn't really, playing with a lot of like little toys. But, and so, I went, and so in my core, like, I don't know how to do anything but to my fullest ability of that, and so I don't always like to like be put in that position because I'm like, great, now I gotta kick everybody's ass, like, but it was just like
You killed it.
I couldn't not stop myself from being that like driven, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just something that's like naturally, I guess it's an innate sort of thing that's like in my being that like I don't want to have to compete against everybody and like beat them.
Yeah.
But like
You were, like, one of the last-
I'm not I'd rather just be laying on the ground taking a nap. But if you're gonna force me to like then fine. So
Yeah,
it's just
so
sort of
you were-
in my
You were
nature.
like one of the last girls that they picked, and then in the confessionals, everyone's like, "Well, she's like really tiny. She's not going to do anything." And of course, you took home the final touchdown.
Yeah,
You
that
got
was
the
like really
MVP.
crazy. I was shocked at my own self. I was like, damn, what the fuck was going on? Like, who just like,
And I
like
think it
the
was
spirit of
slippery as
Jesus
hell.
Christ, like,
They had rain. It was mud. They had
Yeah.
like snow. There was
it was
wind.
gnarly.
I
But
would've
again,
done
like I just had that like mentality, real or not real, like where I just like I'm driven to like I have to be. It's just a thing that's in me. Maybe it's in my genetics. I don't know,
You
but
wanna
it's
do
just
the best
not.
you can.
I don't go down without a fight,
Give your
which
all.
sucks.
So, guys that are still watching, if you have any fan questions that we haven't answered, drop them below. In the meantime, though, people do want to know, why didn't you have a reunion? Because literally almost every other VH1 show had one. What happened with that?
And
Spill the
I
tea
also
on
want to
this
say
one.
like a big thank you for anyone watching and anyone posing questions. I really appreciate you guys and I love you, and it really means a lot. This has been fun. As far as that goes, I don't really know, to be honest with you. I have, there's maybe some things that could have been a part of it, but I just sort of just feel lucky that I was able to do that part of it, if anything, and maybe it was a fluke, or
Did they
as my
offer
dad
it
liked to
you?
say, a flash in the pan. And they're like, you're just a flash in the pan. I'm like, I hate you.
Did they offer it, though? Like, was
They
it...
didn't offer it. I think there was a lot of things going on that just
Okay.
fell into a moment of like bad sort of things that just were just a changing of the guard that unfortunately I was a part of it, of that moment, in that moment that they, things were just sort of, and
Was that kind of
again,
the Megan
and there were some other
thing?
things that like had happened, and I in my like deeply personal personal life that like might have affected it, and that, you know, and then I feel like, you know, that I definitely might have been a proponent in that aspect, and you know, and then I say to myself, then, you know, it serves me right, you know, and that's a lesson that I might have needed to learn, and I'm just again grateful for the even just the moment of even a thought of saying like, oh, let's give this person their own TV show.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they've never done anything their entire, I mean, I'd done stuff, you know, but it was just like, that's a big responsibility to put to
On a young lady.
it's not really like I'm not saying like a responsibility, but it's just a lot of, you know, to be great, to really be great, and to be captivated, and to be entertaining, and to be, you know, so fabulous that they're like, we're definitely giving you, you know, you're going to be going for a long time. You know, maybe, you know, they saw me and they thought, you know, this girl just doesn't have what we thought, and you know, who knows, you know, that I'm not sure, but again, I never really question it, and or sort of try to put too much, you know, dwelling upon it. And I know a lot of people wanted to, and for a long time, it actually really made sense because of there was just such a huge falling out between me and Josh, and my life was just going, it was just like going chaotic. It was just like all kinds of other things sort of like started happening that were just like beyond like Daisy of Love, you know. All suddenly a lot of my personal life had become like a focal point that was just like, who cares about that reunion show? Let's talk about this other thing. But you know, again, I'm just grateful for having a show, you know.
So that kind of leads into the second question. There was no reunion. Does that mean you were never offered a second season, or were you offered one and said no?
I was, as far as I know, I wasn't offered one. I don't think that they won. I just, you know, I don't know the circumstances, to be honest. That would be something that you know, would have to be asked by, you know,
production,
the powers that be. You know, in this industry, it is again, it's a very fickle. It's very by chance, by luck. And then not just by chance, by luck, but then it's like, then, you know, you still got to like count your blessings and your, you know, because, you know, you're never, you know, just because you think you've made one moment, you know, you're easily replaceable, and you're easily sort of, you know, you're a dime a dozen. There's no, you know, there's a million people out there that are talented and beautiful and interesting and fun and whatever. And so, you know, whatever decisions that anyone made, I wouldn't, of course, for in a career sense, I would never say no, because that's, you know, hope.
You would have
that's
done season 2 if you
there's like that's a hope in the back of your mind as a person who is an entertainer, who's an actor, who wants work. Like, you know, of course you're like, you know, but that's like the best news you could ever hope for. You know, oh, they loved me, they really loved me. But apparently they didn't. So they were like, no, that was just you know, a mistake. Who knows? I'm just again grateful. It's not easy to you know, out of all the so many people, out of all the girls, even, you know, I'm not even saying like I would have been like the best girl. I mean, there's a lot of
there was
really
a lot of girls that almost had spin-offs, right? Like Heather,
I don't know, you know, I think, you know, those people, all, you know, whatever reasons, those, you know, I think those people deserve any, you know, Heather, you know, Ashley and Farrah, they're, you know, those are talented, witty, smart, really quick, you know, like really have like the one-liners, and me, you know, I didn't have any of those things.
I think that I'm going to cut you off, and I do this sometimes. I think you are undervaluing yourself, because as a viewer, and someone that watched you, I think you're funny. I think you're talented. I think you're passionate. Not only are you absolutely beautiful, but don't ever for a second downplay the impact that you had. That shit.
Thank you. That is so good, you guys.
I did my studies. I was a broadcast journalism graduate. You had really good ratings. So, like, you were loved. As soon as you walked on the TV screen, you were a star. So
and they love you in the comments too as well.
Yeah, and don't sit here and say, don't ever belittle yourself in the sense that you didn't deserve what you got, because as a fan, I mean, when I say a fan, I'm an interviewer. I enjoyed your show. I like you. I interview celebrities. I'm not like a huge fan, but just as someone who's watched the show, you have shown so much growth too, and that's why we wanted to do an interview with you, because you kind of did disappear for a long time. And I know for myself personally, like, I watched your show a couple months back, you know, during the pandemic. That's what a lot of us did, is we binge watched our old favorite reality TV shows. And I was like, you know what the fuck ever happened to Daisy? Like, I'm really, like, she just vanished. And, like, doing this
I mean, I
now,
think I did like, I did as much as I could. And I think that like, I actually had been surprised, like, over the last, like, year or so to hear people actually say that because I'm like, I was like really working as hard as I could to try to continuously pursue my goals and my dreams. And so some people had said that to me, like maybe not even that long ago back. That was the first time I really heard that. Like, what do you guys mean I disappeared? Like I was like, I was really trying. Like I was out there, like, I toured with like, in musical things, and I did, I had my own show in Vegas for a while. And I tried as hard as I could. It's not as easy as people might think, and maybe not, maybe just for me. Like for someone with me, I was really lucky, like so lucky. But there was a lot of talk of all these other things, and it's not an easy industry. A lot of people promise you things, and they want to work with you, and maybe they just, they can change their mind too. That's, a lot of things are like, oh, we're gonna, we definitely want to do this and this, and then next thing you put all your eggs in that basket, and next thing they're like, oh, we changed our mind, and you're like, what? You're like, what do you mean you changed your mind? Like, I'm going broke and I'm dying,
I hate my
and so
life, but I'm
a lot
still
of that
hating
like kind of
myself.
happened, and but again, there's a lot of really talented, there's a big talented gene pool out there that
We just want you
I
to
am
know
lucky
that you
to
were one
even
of those big talented people.
Yeah, you're that girl.
I'm lucky to even have like the little blip that I ever did, because it really is and especially nowadays, like the population has doubled. Everyone's a fucking star now. Everyone's a star. Everyone is beautiful. Everyone is talented. There's no, I really got lucky. Sometimes I think about like, people and like, if only like I would have known what I had known like when I was like 10 or something, I could be like a huge star. But now it's like there's no, I'm lucky I just got in just barely, because nowadays if I would come out, there'd be no way. Like there's so many, everyone's
You gotta want to
like,
fight everybody, and you want to be all about drama. So speaking of like that, so rock and roll, as we all know, it's sex, drugs, rock and roll. So there's two questions, and once again, you don't have to answer them. They might be a little sensitive, so you can skip them, you can say what you want. But I noticed when I did rewatch Rock of Love, you were kind of like, especially now in this generation, we're like more empowered, like female empowerment, do what you want with your body. You were really like slut shamed. Do you know what I mean?
I was really what?
You were like slut shamed on
Oh,
the
okay.
show. Like everybody's like, oh, you're sleeping your way to the top, blah, 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 blah. How do you feel about that? Because like when it was Bret Michaels like sleeping with a bunch of girls, they're like, oh, good for you. But it's like if one girl were to sleep with him, it's like, oh, you're a slut. Like, what are your thoughts on that? How do I word this? On that like
Double standard.
double standard? Thank you. Like, how do you feel about that? Especially because you did both shows. How do you feel like, you know what I mean? If I'm presenting the question properly.
I feel like first of all, I never thought of myself. I've always thought of myself, and in fact, I've always been probably even, more on the prude kind of side, and never ever, I sort of, maybe, some of my friends might be like, yeah, you definitely have like the sex appeal and the sex, but I've never ever, as a person and as a woman, like tried to use that to my advantage, like ever. And even if it looked like I did, I did not do that on purpose, because that was always a thing that I thought was like, that would upset me. Not that it's wrong. If you want to do that, that's fine. When I was younger, I definitely would always disapprove of that kind of thing, to say like, I don't need to use my sexuality or whatever it is, I don't need to, come at you like with all this just to get and be what I want and be what I want to do, because I have a different vibe. But now, if that's the vibe that I gave off, I don't know. That's just a natural sort of essence of sexual whatever. I don't know. But I've always made it a point in my life to like never be that person and never have to. And so, but I also don't believe in like, I think like, I've never saw myself as a not an equal to a man. In fact, if anything, I've always either seen myself as an equal or above, because I've never had an experience. But and again, I haven't purposely used my sexuality like ever. Like in fact, I'm very shy. I'm very awkward, especially when it comes to men. I'm very timid and scared because I just didn't have a good, I was sexually abused, and I, just had like really weird, things that I had to overcome as a child to first even have connections with men who I absolutely adored. I can say that, but I never tried to like, they were always like, oh yeah, you're cute, but your friend, let's talk to you about your friend. And so I was always sort of like the cool girl, but like not really, nobody really wanted to be, like nobody thought I was really hot. Like, oh my God, I gotta know you, so those things are surprising, but if I have a connection with somebody and chemistry wise, and I want to make a physical connection, I don't think anything should be wrong with that, especially if you're an adult.
Exactly.
That's sort of like big deal. Like, who, that happens. That's, evolution first of all.
That's one of the questions I got in my DMs was, and once again, you don't really have to talk too much about it. I'm just reading some of my fan questions that I got was, how did she feel about being slut shamed about sleeping with Brett in the house? And then the other question was, how, like, they make it look like you slept with a lot of the guys on the show.
I didn't sleep with any of them. I was just like afraid to kiss them out.
Because production really made it look like that at certain points in the show.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to like disappoint everybody. I didn't mean to like surprise. Which is fine. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to what you I
feel okay. I guess we'll like shift that. How do you feel about how they edited you? Because as someone who's like I've followed you and I've watched interviews of you since the show, and like I feel personally, don't take offense, I feel like you were kind of edited into like a little bit of a ditzy blonde who just had sex appeal on the shows. But like watching you and interviews and speaking to you, you're a very intelligent woman, and like you seem a little different than what they edited you as. So how do you feel they edited you? Do you think it's fair? Do you think that's just who you were at that age?
I think it was fair, to be honest. I think a lot of people might say, "Oh, that wasn't fair," but honestly, I gave them that part of myself, and so maybe I was being a ditzy dumb blonde. Maybe I was a little drinking a little too much. I don't know, and that was the personality, I suppose, that sort of just came out. Like that was, and who I really was at that time, I suppose too. But I definitely was. I think I found myself in this sort of character, and then I just like went with it, and then after like a while of doing it all, and then having this experience, then I thought to myself, okay, wait a minute, like, but I'm not really, people think I try not to read about like what people say about me or my character or whatever the fuck it was, because it just really just can destroy you. So I learned that like right away, not to try to, even good things, because it really sets you up for a failure and heartbreak, and just doesn't really do anything. Even if it's good, because then it gives you a sense of like that you're somehow, you can't be better or something. There's no room for growth, or but it really took me a long time to sort of get back to like this person who was more authentic, the person maybe that I started out before, when I was like in a band and stuff, and I was really deep and just sort of like moody and like whatever, and then to this randomly like bubbly person as a part of just a way to stand out, I guess. I don't know, whatever it was that I was creating at that moment, however I was disassociating or whatever, I don't know. Like
so another question, actually, Kay, do you have any questions?
Is there anything if you can go back, would you redo anything over, or you're just set in stone about how everything went?
I mean, I really like how my life has. I've done so many amazing things. So many great things have happened. I've met so many amazing people after the journey, during the journey, to this day. I'm and having like so many people like now like, oh, you're an icon, all these things. So because of that, like and these special moments that I've had in my life, if I changed anything, then it wouldn't allow for those things to have occurred, because who knows what it would be like. There are certain moments where, I'm like, well, what if I would have made that decision? And then like this one little decision, then I was like, well, then there would be no way that there'd be all these other things would have happened, because it would change everything. Who knows what could have been that, it could have been worse or something. So I can't really say that I would want, I think a lot of people might say like, yeah, they want to do, maybe do some things differently. But then when who I am today and all the other things that have happened wouldn't be there. So it's hard to say that, because there are things that are really special. I think like, oh, I wish I had done it. But if I would have never done, like have my little puppy, I'm like, well, then I would have never had my puppy. Like,
That's regret.
I met that guy or something. Like, certain things that are just things that are, it just, I don't want those things to change, and I'm grateful for it. So.
Yeah.
My tattoo here says regret, and then if you look at it upside down, it says nothing. So I'm a firm believer in that.
Oh, that's really cool that they didn't do that.
You shouldn't regret anything in life. I mean, yeah. When I say regret, I mean you shouldn't want to change it. Do you wish certain things didn't happen the way they did? Absolutely. But you know what? It brings you to where you are today to be the person you are.
Yeah, I think if anything, it's more of a growing process where I think to myself, like, I wish I wouldn't have been so afraid, or I wish I wouldn't have been so scared. I wish I would have really just like went for it and stopped being my own worst critic and being so, hard on myself, or God, well, I can't believe I like thought I was so this or that. And I could have, I could have been living even all that like unnecessary, like conflict within myself might not have had to have happened if I just would have been more, in those senses, that's sort of yes, because then it's, I get like, I'm like mad at myself.
The internet was really big, guys. So this was like when she filmed the show, it was like, I think MySpace was just becoming a thing. So like, imagine what she went through, but now with these new girls, it's like 20,000 times that. You know what I mean? So once again, what we're trying to say is show love to people. Just because you don't like someone because of an edit doesn't mean you need to be an asshole and send death threats.
Yeah,
like I definitely was like, okay, I've never like, and I just remember like this one time I'm like, oh, I'm gonna see what like they're saying to me, and that was a shock, and that was a lesson learned. And then I was like, wow, a lot of them are saying like I look like a man, and I was like, I knew it. I was like, and I like told my boyfriend, I was like, I told you I look like a fucking man.
Oh no, you don't.
I was like, God damn it! Like they're confirming my own my own fears. My puppy wants to say hi.
Hi, baby.
She's like, Mom, she's like, Mom, why are you being so fucking out of control?
So Daisy, there's a little list here I put together. It's okay. So you were, after the show, you were a celebrity. You were out there, and there is we'll call it a confirm or deny list of celebrities that you dated, either before, during, or after the show. So, Corey Haim.
That definitely, I want to say, I do actually want to clear that up. Like, I am very good friends with Corey Feldman, and we've been very good friends for over 10 years now. And that was sort of a moment where like I had been friends with Corey for a while, and he wasn't always friends with Haim. They had their own relationship and whatever. And finally, he had been he had gone through a divorce, Corey Feldman, and sort of, Susie, who is also a very good friend of mine, his ex-wife. Yeah. They really all didn't sort of get along good, whatever. And so as a result of him, having this divorce, like he really he sort of was bringing Haim back into his life, and it was really, I had an attraction to Haim, very much differently than I had for Feldman, and a whole different sort of dynamic of like chemistry or whatever. And I was just really oh my God, totally fangirling out, and he had zero interest in me, but that him and Corey were very, very, they were brothers, practically. And, it was really exciting to sort of meet this, I'm like, when am I ever going to meet Haim? like, when are you going to meet Haim around though? And it happened. And the sad thing is that it happened right as, unfortunately, his life became into a tragic end. And I'm so grateful that I was able to meet him and sort of, you know, you know, like pretend like I could, you know, be a love interest for, you know, him who's really just Hollywood royalty, you know, in a sense. And, you know, someone like me is not, you know, gonna like, you know, and so, you know, really just, very a darling in Hollywood. And so, randomly, you know, I had woken up sadly, you know, a friend of mine, woke me up at like 3 a.m. and said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, I'm like, "What do you mean?" You know? And she's like, you know, Haim has passed away, and I had no clue. And then I started getting all the phone calls from, you know, the you know, me and Corey Feldman had shared a manager at one point, and, you know, they started informing me. But, you know, I was really just kind of like I'm gonna say like a victim of circumstance, but I just happened to just sort of be caught up in a weird thing that happened. And Corey Feldman had been he was interviewed immediately, you know, on Larry King, and he actually he said that I was randomly, I don't know why, that I was his girlfriend, but Haim's girlfriend, but I wasn't. But as a result, like, and I was like, why would you do that? Because then, like, everybody started calling me and contacting me, and they wanted interviews, and I was just like, I literally just met him, and I'm pretty sure he was like zero interest in me, like, you know, zero, even though in my heart I was like, oh my God, you know, like, oh my God, like Corey Haim, like, I'm so into Corey Haim, a totally different vibe from, you know, Corey, who's like a really, like, he's like a brother, you know, like a brother from another mother, like a different deep love for him. That was sort of like this exciting, like, part of his life that he was sharing with me as well. And it was all just really neat and romantical. But then, you know, again, there was, you know, and so his mother was really upset at that whole situation, because he was like, how dare you, like, you know, claim that. I'm like, I didn't say anything, you know, and it just sort of like became this like thing that, really within like their circle and their family, they really were upset about that, because, you know, someone like me isn't considered, you know, good enough for, you know, Hollywood royalty. You know, I'm like F-list or like negative Z-list.
That comment, because everybody's equal. I don't care where you're from, who you are, what movies you've done. I will say I've met, like, and I'm not trying to boast, I've met so many famous people. I just don't give a fuck if you're famous. Like, I will talk to you like I would talk to somebody that I sat next to at a bar. So we're all equal. We all just have different aspects of our lives, different goals, and we're all at different levels. Doesn't mean that we're above anybody in any shape, way, or form, because at the end of the day, guys, we're all worth it. You're all worth something. And
that's such a good message.
Like, that's what it is. Like,
it is. Unfortunately, that's not the way his mom saw it. She's like, you're not going to the funeral. I had this, like, me and my friend, like a good friend of mine, you know, they were like, you can't come to this thing and you can't come to that thing, and they were all going to it, and I was, you know, so sad. I was like banned from it. I wasn't allowed to go to some of the things, and you know, it was happening all the moment, and I was very, very close with Feldman. Like, we were very, 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 very close. But and we shared a lot of the same, you know, like, just a lot of our life was, you know, and one of our friends, females, you know, so she was like, just fuck that, we're gonna dress up in a disguise. And I was like, okay. So I like dressed up in this disguise, and like we and her like went to this thing that was like, it was just like something that was like for like all of us that were sort of like in a different, like, you know, I don't claim to be close. I wasn't like super close to him, but he you know, it was a moment, a small, tiny blip of my heart. And so, anyways, we went to this thing, and I was in this disguise. And then I remember this moment, like, after it was all done, you know, there's all these cameras and stuff, and me and the friend, she was, you know, we're sitting there talking to Feldman, and he's like, and she's like, this is my friend, like, so like, he didn't even know, like, it was me. And then I was like, and then we're like, and then he like saw it, and he was like, what? And he's like, what the fuck? And we just like started laughing like so hard, and he's like, you guys are fucking crazy, like what? But yeah, they were, which is understandable, you know, and I just, you know, I definitely didn't mean for any of that to really become any weird thing, and I would never have said in my life that I would, you know, I just met Haim for the first time. You know, him and Corey, the other Corey, had just sort of started to try to like mend their relationship.
Filming the reality show.
Yeah, it was. No, they actually had. No, it wasn't actually. That was they
No?
had done that before.
Okay.
They had been talking about doing, yeah, that show had already been done, and it was just a moment where, like, Feldman was divorced now, and sort of it was just, and it was magical actually, because who would have thought that not even a month later, he would have passed away. And so that was kind of neat, because it was, as being a really close friend of, Corey being a really close friend of mine, that was actually also a part of his life that he opened up to me. Like, he opened that part of his heart and his, because Corey Haim is very dear to him, very, very, very dear. And so it's sort of like, keeping this part of this, we can't, have this like little part. And then it was sort of like, here you go, Daisy. Like, here's, and I was like, thank you. Like, oh my God, yay. Like, cause he knew, like, I had like a little crush on him and stuff. And I had this whole different attitude towards him. And, but of course, again, if he was alive, he'd be like, fucking date that chick. He's not even like, I was like, I'm like, do you think he likes, like, do you think he likes me? So
rest in peace to Corey, because you know what?
Rest in peace.
I do agree, like, Hollywood royalty, as in he's given us some of the best movies, and you know what? Rest in peace to him. We're gonna move on, because this one I found interesting. There was a rumor that also went around that not only did you date Tommy Lee, but that you also dated his son Josh Lee.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, I never heard that before.
Apparently, it's rumored you were with
Josh,
Tommy. Yeah, apparently you were with Tommy Lee, but also dated his son Joshua Lee.
I wonder how huge it is. No, I've never met his sons. I've never met. I was friends with Tommy Lee. I was friends with some of these people before I ever had done the show. Some of them don't remember, but I'm like, do you remember me? And they're like, oh, Daisy. I'm like, yeah, remember me before? Like, so it's sort of like this like bittersweet kind of thing, and like, oh, now you know who I am, kind of thing. But whatever. I don't hold it against them. But I had met Tommy so many times, just being on, in the rock, in music and stuff, and then I really don't know. I wouldn't really say that I like dated him, but apparently that's the consensus. We went out a couple times, and I honestly, I really didn't think that like someone like Tommy Lee would be really interested in me. And so again, at that time, those time periods, like some of those things, I if I would have been more present and more confident in myself, I maybe, things could have been like different. I could have said, yeah, like I believed like Tommy Lee really was into me, and I really did like make him sad that I was sort of just like, whatever, but like, because I was so, like, there's no way, like these guys that I just like have this like hugest crushes.
Just stop.
I know it's just like a thing, like when it's like all the, one moment you're reading their books and you're like, next moment they're like texting you and they want you to come, hang out with them, and you're just like, wow, like this is very tough. So
you keep saying, even with all of the guys from your show, that you're like, why would anyone?
I know I have like such like,
girl, you're awesome. Like you literally were the epitome of the rock chick. You were like, that's why you got your own show. That's why you were so popular. You were the epitome of like the cool blonde rock chick. You weren't a fighter, but you just didn't give a fuck.
Thank you.
So this one I'm really interested in, because this guy I could actually see you dating, Dave Navarro.
Oh my God, from Ink Master, the host.
From Ink Master, or I don't know what band he was in, because I'm not
Jane's Addiction.
Jane's Addiction, thank you. So did you guys date?
I don't really know if I would call that dating either. I think like I had definitely more moments with him than I did with Tommy Lee, and Dave and me were like in the press a couple of times. But at that so the funny thing is, like, when I was done with Rock of Love, I knew it was, at first it was said that I was going to be on Charm School, and then I was like, all right, I'm out, peace out, I'm going to California. And my ex, Mr. Edward, he helped me pack all my stuff up, drove me to LA, and I had my place set up and everything. And then like that night later on, I met up with Dave Navarro, and we went to sushi. I did like his TV show, I think, and then he had this TV show at the time called Mania TV that he was hosting. And so I had done some other interview. It was like right before I had moved to California. Like I was like the next day I was going to move to California or something, or whatever. And I had done some interview with a woman who was in another band, a very prominent band. I forgot the name. And I happened to just like randomly mention Dave Navarro's name for some reason, like a joke. And she's like, "Oh, you like Dave Navarro?" And I was like, I don't know. Like, and she's like, oh, I know him. And I'm like, oh, really? And she's like, yeah, she's like, you know what? I'm going to send him your number. And I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. She's like, yeah, I'm going to text him your number right now. And so she texts him, and I guess he's like, oh yeah, you know, so I was thinking like she's like, okay, cool, like I sent him your number, and so he starts texting me, and I'm like, you know, maybe he knows who I am from the show, because I, you know, had some of the other, you know, like Nikki Sixx and stuff, like they had like seen the show, and they were like, you know, they were always like commenting, like, you know, wanting to know about like Bret Michaels' hair and stuff. I'm like, I don't know. It's like, they're like, so what was Bret Michaels' hair like?
Those
I'm
were
like, are you
fucking
serious?
clip-ins.
I was like, why are you asking me this? Like, they always wanted to know that. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, okay. So, I think like even like Puff Daddy, like once, like he's like, so is his hair like really? I'm like, I don't know. That was always like the question that everybody wanted to know. And so,
But they were,
so,
right? They were clip-ins, right?
I don't know. Well, like, I don't know, because I don't want to call him out, and I don't know. Who knows?
That's
Who knows?
a fucking
Hair,
yes. That is
you
a
know.
fucking yes.
But just also, you know, it's like, if you think of it as something you're like from the 80s, and you're the hair metal. You're
There's
known
nothing
for.
wrong with men wearing an extension, so there's no.
No, there's not.
shame.
I'm not. No, I definitely don't.
Yeah.
I've dated, most of the men that I've dated they wear makeup. I'm very like,
Yep.
you know, to me that's always been like an aesthetic that's attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
and
what
so I've
rockers
never,
do.
and the guy who, you know, he was very obsessed with their appearance, like those kinds of guys, you know, people who are in entertainment and actors and musicians, stuff, they you know, they you know, they dress up and they do things. So when he started texting me, I thought he knew who I was, and then he was like, oh, you want to do my TV show? And I was like, okay, like, I'm gonna be here this day. He's like, yeah, why don't you come? And so I met him on his show the first day that I had moved to California, and then like later that night he invited me out to go to like sushi. And I went to sushi with him, and like literally like the day I rolled up to fucking California, and then like all these like paparazzis were out, and I was just like, oh my God, like what is happening? Like, this is crazy. And we, you know, Dave was really sweet and really kind, but then we ended up like, again, you know, he's Dave Navarro. He dated like Carmen Electra. I think he even mentioned like one time, like, oh, Carmen, you know, Carmen's like, she likes you or something. I'm like, what? I'm like, she's Carmen Electra. I don't think I can compare to her, but like, because I was doing the show and it was still like not even filmed, they were like really angry at me. They're like, Daisy, you have a TV show that you're supposed to be filming. You can't just like show up and start dating all these fucking rock stars. Can you please stop doing that? And I'm like, I'm like, and you know, this was like my like, I was like so like into it. I was like, and so they got mad, and they, you know, I remember like one time, you know, they wanted to talk to Dave, and they said, you can't go out with her anymore. Like, she's filming a show, and he got like really angry about that, and whatever, you know, and he's a great guy, and it was what it was, and I'm so, you know, he's super sweet. He was really a sweet guy.
So the last guy that I will ask, and then Kay, if you and I, like, whatever other questions before we wrap up, but the other guy that we want to clear up, that there was rumors you dated, and for some reason apparently he was on set, Criss Angel.
No, what? I mean, like, I wish, but like
The magician?
No,
Like,
I've never.
apparently you guys dated
I mean,
for
like,
quite
he's a
a
good looking
while.
guy. No, and so that's really bizarre. And those other two, like the Tommy Lee's son. First of all, I only date older men, so that's gonna be like a no. Maybe now I've gotten a little older, so like maybe call me. I don't know, but no, I've never even met Tommy Lee's son. And as far as Criss Angel goes,
There's a lot of pictures of you guys out there together on the internet.
really, like,
Yeah.
together?
Yeah.
No, there isn't. I've never even met Criss Angel ever. I think that must be somebody else.
Well,
I've never met
maybe,
Criss
but
Angel in my
I
life.
know that
I think that's
been-
Holly Madison.
That's the number one person it says that you dated after the show was Criss
Really?
Angel.
I've
I
never even met Criss Angel, like, ever. I've never even met Criss Angel, so that's funny.
Really?
Yeah, I've
That's
never even met him.
crazy.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's really crazy.
So,
I mean,
guys, she's spilt here first. She's never even met Criss
I
Angel.
know, I've never even met Criss Angel. I went to like a show once, but like, I was like in the audience, like fangirling.
You didn't
in,
have
and-
like a meet and greet? You didn't
No.
meet him then?
No,
No.
because I think it was like my
Photoshop,
boyfriend.
because I could
Yeah, they
swear
can't-
there's a picture of you with Criss Angel out in public holding hands.
What? No, that's not true. That's like AI or
Fake
something.
news.
Yeah, fake news. That's
Hey,
definitely
you got
like
any
a.
questions you want to ask before we start wrapping it up? Like, I know you
Yeah.
got some more too. I'm just going to step away for a minute, so.
Okay. Are you currently working on anything now that you are able to speak on?
Um, I really don't have any. I can't really speak on some things. Hopefully, I can say things are looking really bright and exciting, and I'm really grateful. It's been a while since I've really kind of put a focus on doing things again. I did go through a really bad stint of depression as well, so which is really, really hard for me to had to come out of, and some relationship trauma and whatever, and doing school. But I do have coming up. I've now have a guest spot as on a podcast with a couple of nerds, and it's they're two really cute married couple who do like trivia, and they have asked me to join them for a segment called Ask Daisy, where you can email whatever, and it's like a podcast and doing a little segment where you can ask me questions. So that's kind of cool, and that's going to be starting on February 19th coming up. And then yes, and then next Thursday, actually, I will also be a guest on another podcast called The Movie Vault, I think is what it's called. Sorry, The Movie Vault.
The Movie Vault. Yeah.
Well, The Movie Vault. Okay, so I'm really honored. They've asked me to be guest on their show 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Thursday the 9th, next Thursday, and so I'll be on there talking with them, and so just some other podcasts and stuff, and I guess Instagram Live is a new thing now, which I think is pretty cool. I think this is a really cool thing. This is my second time doing this, and I think this is really fun. Yeah. And so I have some other of those coming up at not until March, so just have to look out for any information of that. So thank you for asking, though. I really appreciate that.
So guys, not only was Daisy the star of Rock of Love 2, let's be honest. She had a spin-off, Daisy of Love. She's been featured on other of the shows. She's done things with Dave Navarro on his show. But just so you guys know, she's also an actress. So she's been in movies such as Text, Hick, 51 the movie. According to IMDb, you might have a new role in a movie coming up. Is there truth to that? Or
I can't say anything. I can't say things.
When they say they can't say anything, guys, that's
I have no idea. I can't. I was like, no.
But I signed it.
I just know that I'm just grateful, I'm just grateful, so grateful. These are things that I've, worked for my whole life, and, they're not, it's not I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that anyone cares. I'm stunned when people are on my Instagram like, oh my god, icon legend. I'm like, what? I'm like, you guys stop it. I'm not a fucking icon. What are you talking about? So that's so sweet. Thank you for saying that and mentioning that. That's really sweet of you.
And on top of all those things, she's also a musician, everybody. So she can play bass. I'm assuming you can play other instruments, I would guess, but she was in bands. Seraphin Shock, which I believe you were the bass player, correct?
Yeah, I was.
You also went on to do Black Star Electrica. Are you doing solo music? Are you still doing the music thing? Oh, sorry, I was out of the room. My bad. But yeah, she's multi-talented, guys.
Thank you so much for asking that. That really makes me so happy, and makes me feel like that I do these things that people can, when somebody can refer to me as an actress or a musician, that's the greatest compliment and thing that really makes me feel legitimate, because it's not you can just say oh, I'm an actress and people believe you, or for it's actually taken me so long. I'm I am, guys, I swear to God, I swear I'm an actress, or have the press say that I'm a singer or an act. That's a really huge compliment for somebody to recognize that I've done, that I aspire, but to really give that away, to say that is so whoa, TMZ just said I was an actress, because so many people don't really take that. When I first took the job of Rock of Love or whatever, a lot of people were don't do it, it'll ruin your career, you'll never get away from reality TV, you'll never ever be an actress after that, it'll just be a career killer. And I've had to definitely, fight a lot. But also, beggars can't really be choosers. So
Fair.
But as far as music goes,
Absolutely.
music is my ultimate passion, and I think the thing that I'm best at, maybe not that I'm like perfect at it, is something that I still work at every day as far as becoming a better singer, a better musician. You know, when I was a child, my mother told me that I would never, you know, that I was that I would never be a singer. You know, I
Oh
already
my
knew like
God, that's the
I like
worst.
knew what I wanted to do like my whole life. Like I just had this like thing. I woke up one day and I was like, I'm gonna be like an actress and like a singer, which maybe a lot of kids do. But I knew like right from the moment, like when I was like 9 months old, I just like had this thing that told me like that's what I was gonna do. And but my mother was like, you don't have a good voice, so you can't sing. And I was like, and so I worked on it like my whole life to try to like hear myself singing and like overcome this like fear that I didn't that I did then developed, which I think had hindered me for a long time to ever you know the worst thing you can do is try, if you stifle somebody's voice, like in the sense that like then I had a fear of speaking, I had a fear of talking. It really like gave me like I
Breaks
think
you
like a
down.
stutter and everything. It just because my mom always said that, and I was like that's always all I could ever think about. So even though in my heart and my soul I was like, no, but I love fucking music so much, and I know every song in the world, and like so I did my best to like become a musician as best as I could, and so music. But it's also a funny thing. Creating your own music is
Difficult as fuck.
obviously there's a lot of talented people out there who can create music, but there's also times when people can become, you know, I'm not the most talent. I wouldn't say I'm the most genius and creative person, but I'm also like a person who like can only do one creative like right now at school, and that's all my mind can only do. So being creative, I'm trying, but it's also like a focus, and it's like if I do that, like that's all I can do,
One
But I'm
thing at a
trying to
time.
yeah, like if I do like music, I'll just be sitting there for hours and hours and get nothing else ever done ever again, which is fine. But I'm like, I'm legitimately trying to get like a degree, like, because then I'm like, because that was, that's much what I'd rather be doing than, studying something about fucking biology. Like,
So what
not that
was
I
out
know.
of all of the songs that you've recorded, I really enjoyed Pretty Messed Up.
Really?
That's probably well, I honestly, I'm not gonna lie, and once again, when I say this, I'm just speaking on the edit. I'm not speaking on you as a person, but like, for me, I never really listened to your music until I knew that we were gonna interview. I really, because they made it look like you couldn't sing on the show, if we're being honest,
I
right?
actually really can't. I'm not saying I'm the
Well,
greatest
that's what
singer.
I was gonna say. It's like I've seen a lot of your like live performances online and stuff. You have a beautiful voice. Um, and you know what? It's really raw and passionate, and like you have a lot of emotion behind it, which is just like so beautiful to watch. But what, like, out of all the songs that you've recorded that are out there right now, what's your favorite? Which one would you be like, this means something to me the most out of all of them?
Yeah, there are
Yes,
like
I
a
have.
few. Some of them actually haven't been recorded studio wise because when I was like one day I was like, I'm gonna go and swear with a band, and then people took me seriously, and they were like, okay, and they started like booking, and I was like, I don't have any songs. So I like got with these really talented creative people, and I just wrote like magic songs, but we never actually recorded them. And so there's a few out there that I have. One is called Starry Night, and I really believe, I really love that song. Really, when I hear it, I just it's very emotional for me. And there's another one that's called Control, and another one called Fame Kills. That to me like are um and there's a bunch of there's a lot of like ones I didn't record, because then after that I started started working with different people, and going, and then just doubting yourself, and it's just a horrible thing to do when you're an artist, and you just overthink things, and then you just end up ruining yourself. Like you end up ruining a good thing. You don't even realize, like, like what you're saying, like how, like, oh, so many people love that or like that, and because you're so critical about yourself, so you just totally change everything and try to do something totally different when you should have just stuck with what you were really in your gut, in your soul. So, yeah, I think maybe that song, Starry Night.
So your favorites are the ones that are unreleased.
Yeah, the ones that I was never able to, that I never recorded,
What is your
thus
favorite
far.
one that is available for all of our followers and stuff to go listen to?
It's not a really weird thing to like say. Like just like oh, this is like
We
my
all
favorite.
have our own favorite songs.
I know,
Like, I'm
just
an
like
artist.
not,
I
but
have
not like for
favorite
my own
musicians.
thing. Like, do you do music? Like,
I do actually. I'm a
okay,
singer.
okay. What is your favorite? What is your favorite song of yourself?
I wrote a song about like so I also rap, which nobody would expect because I'm gay and white. So people make fun of me and they're like I'll go into a bar with a group full of big like honcho straight men who think they can rap and I'll just fucking bust it out and they're like, "Oh!" But I wrote a song about me and my
I
mom
love it.
were almost murdered when she was selling weed and somebody tried to rob us and almost killed both of us. And I wrote it within like 5 minutes to the 10
Wow.
Toes Down Challenge soundtrack. We've never done it studio wise, but like really beautiful. So like when I listen to your music, that's why I respect it because I'm an artist. So like I understand when I can tell when someone writes their music and like there's emotion behind it. Like you're writing from an experience. So even with like the titles, like Fame Kills, stuff like that, like you're
Yeah.
writing about like even if it's a collab or whatnot, you're writing about something that you've been through and something that means something to you, and that's what's important.
Thank
Which
you.
brings
I
me
appreciate you. You're just like such an awesome. You guys are so awesome. Thank you. Like you guys are so cool. Like I
Oh,
love that.
yeah.
You know, it's nice. It's nice to like you know.
Well, I
I
think you're
that's so
really
nice.
fucking cool. I think
Like
this is probably, even out of my Bad Girls Club interviews, I think this has been one of my favorite. And I'm not going to lie, my hands are a little sweaty. I don't know why, because I'm never usually nervous for interviews. Like, I went to college for this. But for some reason, I was sitting here watching your show and I got a little bit of anxiety. I was like,
oh my god.
but like, probably one of my favorite interviews. One of the
Oh
last
god. Thank
questions I
you.
do want to touch base on, and once again, if it's a sensitive topic, we don't have to talk about it, but a lot of what online says, and there are stories that have been released by you, is part of why you disappeared was there was a little bit of like substance abuse. And so, as somebody myself who struggled with addiction in my lifetime, I'm curious, like, what that journey was like. If you want to talk about it, where you're at, if there's anything you'd want to even pass on to other people that might be possibly struggling with it, and if
Yeah.
not, that's totally fine too.
So yeah, that is definitely like addiction and stuff in many ways, not just not just drugs. It isn't when we think of like addictions, and
Mhm.
alcohol, but food and
People,
people and
yes,
love, and it's not just one. It's not just limited to like one thing. And so because of that, like you know, I have this disease, if you will, that sort of I don't want to say like hinders me, but it just gives me this other thing that like I become upset. These things in my
obsessed,
life
yeah.
become just and they just tear me down. And so I have dealt with that my whole life. I grew up in a household where those things were just completely normal, and 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 just part of who I am, unfortunately. But I did struggle for a long time with a lot of different some different substances. Never really alcohol. Alcohol was never really like my thing. Um, and
Is that
I
why you kind of disappeared though? Like,
I don't want to say like that's not really why. I think it just disappeared because people didn't pay attention to me anymore. But I mean, I was definitely I mean, I've been in a relationship for like the almost the better part of 10 years, and during that 10 years, in that sense, before then, I was out, I was doing as much as I could, and but for the last like 10 years, I definitely have been seriously involved in my real deep personal life, and very much involved in that to the point of no avail. There's no other, like, who cares about anything else, just this situation every day, like this thing, nothing else. Everything just can go crash and burn into everything else. So that's just unfortunately a part of myself that is I have to really get a hold of, because it's just I am, especially when it comes to like love and stuff, I'm definitely like, it's a danger almost. It's because I become so like in,
it's a
and then
trigger.
so that's probably like really what maybe what was going on. But and in the meantime, in between, there was definitely, I did have after the show Daisy of Love, I did go to rehab, and the producers paid for it and stuff, and they were and I mean, I can't, this is, I was living that life sort of before Rock of Love to even, I was already living this
It just
life that was sort of,
emphasized it.
yeah, and it did. And so, and then it became like even more, it was even more easier and I just became,
Available.
and then it was like I was just going to like, these appearances and I was just like, I don't even care. I don't want to, yeah, you want to come back to my hotel. I just want to get the drugs. Like, just give me the drugs. That's all I care about. And so it became like that, but it was not because of the shows or anything. It's because like, that's who I already was. And those were already that was already a part of my life to begin to, from very early on. My puppy's like, Mom, can you like shut up now? And it was already
We'll
part
wrap
of
it
my
up
life.
soon, babe. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. And it was, thank you so much for taking the time. And anyone who's out there still caring, there's like, when is she gonna start? Oh no. And so it was, it's just still, it's some of those substances I definitely have, I had, a struggle with cocaine. I don't anymore, thank God. But it's still a thing that I have to remember not to do. Like, it can still
It's hard.
go. It can still go that way. So, everyone most of the people who struggle with substances abuse and are addicts, they know that it's a lifetime event. It's forever. You have to constantly, and I've been, I've had, Corey Feldman has really, he helped me a lot to get away from like cocaine and stuff. And the rehab, so that's been something that I really got under control because it was really bad for, again, before I ever did Rock of Love and everything, it was a natural part. It was a natural part of my life already.
Sex,
and
drugs, and rock and roll. That's what
yeah,
I'm saying.
I'm definitely like the poster child for like, and so
Sorry to
I have
interrupt, babe. Somebody's asking me. I just got a message. Is that because I don't know if you know this, but there's a 911 call of you on the internet.
I do know those, unfortunately.
Was that they're asking?
And that's a call that I really feel like really upset about because like I feel like some friends I thought people who I had thought were my friends, they really sort of they let me down and they really, I don't even know how, that, some people who struggle with substance abuse have this thing in them that they can turn, when it goes too far, they become like
Somebody
demonic.
else.
They become like demonic. And unfortunately, I think I have those traits. A lot of people who drink, and maybe like a lot of Mexicans, like, don't drink tequila. And it becomes, and I was just, I don't know. I don't really want to say much about that. All I know is that incident really hurt me as a person because I thought to myself, like, why would you, like, as my friend, like, or people who I thought were my friend, I'm gonna like cry about it like almost.
Released from 911 though. It doesn't sound like your friend recorded it.
I don't really know the incident, like what happened. It just, I don't, that's a weird, maybe another subject for like
a different
my book.
day, different time.
It's like really deep that like I could share it with them. People would be like, what the
We don't have to get into that.
Like a whole nother like really just like bizarrety of, and it's a part of like, I could say like, like post-traumatic stress disorder and things about myself that have, that I've had, and a lot of demons and things that I've had to like, heal from and tame and learn about myself. And then, sometimes like, I always can tell if I'm dealing with some bullshit, like I'll know, so I need to do some shadow work or something, because when I'm drinking, if I get a little crazy, then I know like something is going on, and then like if I'm having a good time and like everything's good, then I know, I'm like, okay, but it's an ongoing process. Like I'm always think I'm done with like my shadow work or whatever, if you guys are familiar with that, and really sort of healing from these things. And then I'm like, nope, I still got some more shit that I have to deal with. I still have something that I have to, but I've had a lot of healing. I've done a lot of healing, like so much healing, but I'm like, where is that healing in that time? Like, yeah. Sure. And so, some of those things I don't struggle with anymore, thank God. And I'm really thankful. And there was a moment, like around, during the pandemic and a little bit that I was starting to struggle with some of those things again. But then I used my tools that I learned. I went to, got online, tried to go to a meeting, and just called 911. Suicide hotlines. They're out there for people. 1-800 like suicide help and all these things. And if people are feeling that way, like I encourage them definitely to please. Like I know it's like before then I would not have done those things because I didn't really know about them, and I probably, you know, whatever. But now when I struggle with them, I go immediately. I'm just like, because, and you know, you say, oh, like call a friend, but it's such a personally deep, like sick, disgusting thing that like I don't want to bother. You know, these are people and resources that are out there for people, and it's helpful, and you know, and it's I recommend them. They're not perfect. Okay, don't get me wrong, because sometimes I test them. I'm like, you know what? Like, thank God I'm a strong person, because if you said this to somebody else, they might be dying. So I'm just letting you know, you need to improve that. But it's really important. There's things out there, and I encourage people, you know, if you're going to I find online, get online, find a meeting, and you know, and then I was like, you know, I'm a good
resources for everybody.
Yeah, there's lots of resources, and people have moments, and then
suicide hotline numbers, guys. And so I just want to reiterate here, like from my personal perspective, for any of our viewers, if you are feeling suicidal or you feel like you're lost and you feel like you don't have anyone to turn to, please reach out to anybody, because you know what? I know that we all feel like you don't want to be a burden on somebody else, but reach out.
It really helps to talk. And
in our YouTube video
let it out.
for the suicide
it's really
hotline.
important.
Yeah, we'll drop a link to the USA and Canadian suicide hotlines in our YouTube video when we upload it below. And just a side note, I know I don't know you, but like if you ever feel that way, this is just an interview. Like what we would ever talk about personally would be between us. I'll text you my personal phone number, and like if you ever just need to like vent and talk to somebody, like the pandemic really did put all of us in a really fucking weird space.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be a very outgoing person who I now don't leave my house.
That's horrible. It's really horrible. It's really just an awful thing that has happened, which is even a subject for another thing. But I thank you. I really appreciate that, and that means a lot to me. And again, you know, I'm so thankful that I have done that work before to be able to like resort to those coping mechanisms rather than continuously. And then it also brought back a reminder of like no, you don't. I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to fucking feel like I want to jump out of my skin, rip my skin off, and it's just not a good feeling. And you know, so yeah, it can become very, very dark, and I'm just like, remember, this is why we don't do this. And you know, sometimes you have to have a moment of reminder, maybe, you know, but definitely you know, learning coping mechanisms are really probably one of the biggest things that saved my life, you know, and however that might be, you know, sometimes even just scrolling through Instagram and looking at beautiful things can be a coping mechanism to really just get yourself in a better and in a different sort of vibe, you know. And so you know, some people might not understand, but whatever can work for you to not make you jump off that deep end and really, you know, dive into those places, those deep, disgustingly dark places. Like you're crawling on the ground at like fucking 7 in the morning, like looking for anything that might look like a fucking drop of, you know,
you're like, hey, where'd it go?
I'm like, I know it's here somewhere. Like, honestly, you know, those are really dark places. There's even darker places, you know, and I don't want anyone to feel like that. And then I'm so glad, I'm so thankful. Yeah, and I'm just really thankful that I was able to overcome those things, some of those things, and yeah. And I'm so thankful for you guys. I'm so thankful for you guys and people like you out there who are supportive, and like all the support that you can have. And you know, yeah, even and going online, it just doing an NA meeting or something, you know, even if you're just sitting there quiet and just angry, you know, just being like angry at, you know, whatever, just be there, because it helps if you feel that you have some support, and then it's going to be okay, like that you're trying, you know, you're going to be okay.
Exactly. And just so you guys know, everybody, you can go online to, I believe it's like naanonymous.org or aaanonymous.org. You can find meetings anywhere. 24
hours a day.
You want to go. There's always going to be a meeting somewhere you can go to. If you're uncomfortable going in person, you can. There are some online meetings. Reach out for the help. A lot of people have struggled through, after, and before the pandemic. So let's just all make sure we're taking care of
definitely. That's like a big, you know, if you. Yeah.
Well, Daisy, I know we've kept you now for like forever, but thank you so much for interviewing
Thank you.
us.
Thank you.
Once again, I am going to send you my number, and I do genuinely stand by that. If you ever need to talk, I'm always here. Same, you know, for anyone that I speak or do interviews with, I'm here. Always
Thank
kept
you. I
personal.
appreciate you.
But guys,
Thank you.
this has been a great interview. We've got Daisy De La Hoya from Rock of Love Season 2, Daisy of Love, actress, entrepreneur, musician. My handle on Instagram is The Real Darcy Daniel, so TheDarcyDaniel. You can follow me there. We will upload this on YouTube shortly. And you guys drop what are your handles?
Okay, so my Instagram is impressive.ken. And you can also reach me at my business page where I sell clothing and accessories at slay.edition. So check it out.
Hey.
See what it's about.
And then you can just reach me at BGC Positivity or BGC Girls Inc. And yeah. But yeah, thanks for doing this interview with us, Daisy. And we'll all be in touch with you soon.
Thank you. I love you guys. Thank you so much. I forgot you were there. I'm like, why is God speaking? Thank you so much. Thank you. Mine. So I have
one that says it's your real name.
Really? Like my real name?
I think it's an underscore and says Daisy De La Hoya or something. Oh wait, no.
So my handle for my Instagram is just just another dumb blonde. It's just and it's.
I think. Cool. Also, there is one last question that I'm gonna touch really quickly on because I just got that in my inbox, and then we'll end it. Is there any truth that your real name isn't Daisy?
That's like, why is that my real? I don't really like. I mean, it's like,
Should I drop?
With Marilyn Monroe's real name, Marilyn Monroe, but that's not really. I mean, I do have a birth name. I know a lot of people want to claim that they're really confused that they think that I'm not like related to Oscar De La Hoya, which is so silly because that's definitely my uncle, and my dad is his brother, and that's just a silly thing to say that out of all the people I would rather be I'm related to Sylvester Stallone or something, but other random it doesn't it's not but Daisy is
the first name. I'm not questioning the second, but I heard that the real name.
No, I was born like this.
You were born Daisy?
I was born Daisy my whole life.
Somebody said your name was Vanessa M something. I don't remember. Is there any truth to that? Sorry, I'm just being a messy bitch now.
I gotta go. So I do use Daisy is some because I don't know how to answer that question.
All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. Daisy's not answering this question, and that's totally
I really
fine.
don't know how to respond to that.
No, that's totally fine. I got it asked, and somebody said that, and I thought I'd ask. But guys, it's been an amazing interview. Daisy, I'm gonna message you after this, and we'll follow up with you. Okay? Thank you guys. Everybody, follow us, and if you guys have time, go on Tubi right now. Rock of Love Season 2 is on there, as well as Daisy's Daisy of Love. So check those out. And awesome. Thanks, guys. And
thank you guys. Have a nice night. Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you. I appreciate you guys so much. So much fun. Thank you.
Right. Take care.
Bye.
Later.